Everyone, welcome to Stamping with Melva. I'm Melva Peters and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in British Columbia, Canada. And you can find me online at stampingwithmelva.com. It's June and it's the International Crafters Video Hop again this month. So each month we create a video based on a theme, and we share that video and give you all the links to everyone who's participating this month so that you can hop from video to video on our YouTube channels and check out the projects. So this month it's all about celebrations. So that's kind of a really broad theme. We could do just about anything we wanted to. And so I decided to use the Layers of Beauty bundle, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite bundles. It has decorative masks in it. And I've been playing with them and found a few different ways to use them. So if you follow me, you've seen me use it where you actually stamp the image and then you use the masks, and basically use the mask the same way as I'm going to show you, but except it's stamped underneath. But today I'm going to show you how to not use a stamp. Really, it's easy. You just don't stamp it before you use the masks, and you get a completely different look. Well, I'm going to create hopefully a very subtle look to these flowers. I have another technique that I'm going to share on an upcoming video where you do some watercoloring, which is also very fun. But today it's all about unstamped masking. Maybe that's a new word. I don't know if that's exactly what you call it, but that's what I'm calling it. So I'm going to switch over and I will show you how to use the Layers of Beauty bundle with the decorative masks. Okay, so this is the bundle. It's so you have a stamp set, of course the dies that go with it, so you can cut out this great image. So this image is actually 85%, so the die is bigger because of course the stamp actually is bigger than the image. You have some other little dies to cut out the images, as well as some extra dies to cut out some leaves and sprigs, and this great cute little tag that will fit one of the sentiments. So that's the stamp set and dies. If I can get my, there we go. And then the other thing that comes in the bundle, so it's kind of a 3-part bundle, are these masks. And you can see mine are pretty well used. I thought I had cleaned them off a little better than I did, but they're not, but that's okay. We'll use them as they are. So these masks allow you to add layers down to, and I am going to kind of just wipe them with a baby wipe here because I'm getting ink on my fingers. Like I said, I thought I had cleaned them, but really, goodness sakes, I had not. So we'll just give them a wipe. So you can create layers of color by using these masks. They are numbered. And there is a notch. I'll show you how to use the notch so that you can kind of layer them and get this very cool effect, whether or not you use the stamp or not. Or if you use watercolor, like I clearly did the last time I used these masks. So they just wipe clean and they come pretty clean. I think they're probably a little whiter when you get them, but they do clean up quite nicely. Okay, so there are 5 different masks, and this is the first one, they are notched here in the corner, and they are numbered. So this gives you an idea of what order to use them in. You don't have to do it this way, but if you do it this way, you can kind of see the images coming to life as you do it. And of course, now I've got wet. And I can't get that glass mask off. Ah. Okay, let's put these over to the side for the minute as I get this one off. There we go. Okay. So I've pulled some supplies. So I've got a piece of basic black, and I've already gone ahead and scored and embossed this. So this is Imperial, so it's 4 1/4 by 11, and it's scored at 5 1/2. And then I went ahead, and I don't know if you can see, there we go. Isn't that a cool, very subtle image? This is called, I believe it's called Soft Crochet, or just Crochet 3D embossing folder. And it's one of the new embossing folders in the annual catalog. And I thought it would just create quite a subtle image, or subtle background for my flowers. So I've already gone ahead and embossed it. So I'm just going to use my bone folder to give it a good crease, and get it straight would be probably even better. There we go. Okay, so I've got basic black. So that's my card base with the embossed side. Then I cut a piece of basic white. So what we're going to do with this one, this is the piece that we're going to stamp or do our masking on. So what you need to do this is, I use grid paper. You can use your glass mat, but I like to use grid paper, and I just kind of mark my, if I find a pen, I mark the outline or the edges, or at least the corners of my paper. And the reason I do that is because if it shifts as I'm making doing my masking, I can move it back into place. But I also will put, this is just a little piece of Post-it note tape. You can use washi tape or a Post-it note. And I'm just going to put that in the corner, just to hold it in place as well. Now I'm going to start with my mask number 1, which is this large flowers. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is, and I'll tell you the reason why I'm going to do this, to mark. I want to put a mark on my cardstock so that I can get my mask in exactly the same place each and every time. So I am going to use my leaves as my spot to mark. And the reason I'm doing that is because this is the largest size, side to side and up and down. So if I started with this one, I found that sometimes my image is kind of off the paper. And so I've decided I'll always start, at least to mark, with my leaves, because they're the biggest image that they go almost. So this piece is cut 4 inches by 5 1/4. It's, you could use 1/4 of a sheet of your basic white cardstock to do this. But I just find that I'm going to use this, make the mark for where this mask sits, because you want, every time you lay one of these masks down, you want them to be in exactly the same spot. So I'm going to mark my notch there, but I'm also going to do exactly what I did with my basic white, and that is to mark the corners, just so I can get this lined up. So I'm going to move that now. So I'm going to pull my number 1 mask, which is the flowers. And so when I put these individual masks down, I'm going to use my marks. So there's the notch, there's my lines, so that I can get my mask in the same place each and every time. And if you want to, you can use a piece of Post-it note tape or washi tape or whatever. So when I've pulled out 5 colors. You can get away with even just a couple of colors and just add pressure when you're doing your stamping. So I'm going to use, actually, let's get these back in. So I'm going to use Pretty in Pink, Peach Pie, Petunia Pop, and then for the leaves I'm using Soft Sea Foam and Lost Lagoon. So let's start with the lightest color for the flowers. When I've got my blending brush here, not clean, but that's okay, it doesn't really matter. So I always start and use, I always use my stamp pad, ink pad, with it open. And I'm just going to use my blending brush, pick up some ink, and I'm going to try and go quite light, because this is the kind of main flower. So I haven't stamped on this. Kind of the traditional way to use these masks is to stamp first with that really large image, and then you can actually start adding the color. So I'm trying to go quite light here with the Pretty in Pink, just to give kind of kind of a light tone to my flowers. Now I'm going to come in. I'm going to take this mask off, and you can see that this is a very subtle, subtle image that I'm getting. So that was mask number 1. So then I'm going to go and find the mask. You can't see that, but that's number 2. And I'm going to do exactly the same as I did the first time. Is I'm going to line this up with those marks that I put on my grid paper. Put a piece of Post-it note tape down, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to pick up some Petunia Pop, and I want to go quite light on this. I don't want this to be too dark, and this Petunia Pop is quite one. My stamp pad is quite juicy, and so it may get a little darker than I'm hoping for, but I'm just going to apply hopefully as light as I possibly can. So there we go. So it's not too bad. Oops, I haven't, gosh, what am I doing here? So there we go. Hopefully you can see better now. But now I've still got quite light and subtle layer to mine. Now I want to bring in the third. So hopefully you can see that a little bit better. So again, that's the notch that I'm lining up with those markings on my grid paper. We'll put that on, close up my peach pie. And now I'm going to bring in, sorry, not peach pie, Petunia Pop. Now I'm going to bring in peach pie. And I'm going to do exactly the same. So this is and I'm going to try and go quite light. But this will just add a little bit of different color to mostly the centers of my flowers, which is kind of what I want. You can go a little darker, but I'm trying to keep this quite subtle. There we go. So you can kind of see we've got roses happening here. Okay, now we've done all of our flowers. Time to bring in the leaves. So I'm going to again start. I'm using Soft Sea Foam and Lost Lagoon. And I'm going to start with the lightest, which is the Soft Sea Foam. And I'm going to bring in mask number 4. Again, lining up putting my mask down so it lines up with those marks that I put. There's my piece of Post-it note, and now I've got another one. I use the small blending brushes. I find work a little better than the big ones for these smaller images, and I do kind of control with my finger the head of that brush so that I can kind of put pressure where I want to put pressure on, and maybe get a little bit darker. So you don't necessarily have to pick up more ink from your stamp pad. You can just apply more pressure. And so, for example, if I didn't want to use another color, like I'm going to use Lost Lagoon, I could just pick up my ink and then continue, just press a little harder, and I would get a much darker image. But because I'm trying to keep this fairly subtle, isn't that pretty? Just so subtle. Again, I'm applying quite light pressure when I do my masking. Okay, we're on to the last one. So that we're down now on to number 5. Again, lining up my notch, lining up the edges with those lines I created. You'll find that if you create the lines, you will be much happier with the outcome, at least in my opinion. Again, I'm going quite light with my Lost Lagoon. If I pressed really hard, I would get quite a dark image, and I really want a very subtle color. All right, let's just pick this up. I want to see. Yeah, I have one side of this that is just a little darker than the others, so I'm just going to go over some of these with just a little bit darker. So you can always kind of pick it up and see what it looks like underneath, and that looks pretty good to me. So you can see how pretty that is. These masks make me feel like I'm an artist when I do them, because I couldn't draw or paint something that looked like this. Okay, so you can take this off the grid paper now. And I'm going to grab the die and figure out how it lines up. So assuming you used a big enough piece and you had it lined up so it's not off of the paper or off of the cardstock, you will be able to use your die to cut this out. Just trying to line it up so it's, there we go. And again, use a piece of Post-it note or Post-it note tape to hold that in place. I'm just going to bring, there we go. I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss. You will need to use your big one for this. Oops, I need a. So I've got my number 1 platform, my number 2, and then number 3, and then your paper and die, and then number 4 or number 3 again. So two number 3s. Oopsie, let's get it going so it wasn't fully on. Okay, there we go. Now it'll cut the whole thing. Okay, so I've got that. While I have my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, I am just going to do some sprigs, and I'm going to do them in, now this is kind of an odd thing, but I want them in Petunia Pop, just because I really love this color. So I'm going to do some leaves in Petunia Pop and some sprigs, and we'll just cut those out while we've got our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine handy. There we go. Okay, so take your pick tool. Let's poke these out. Throw the die. Don't want to do that. There. And one, oopsie, that's a tiny little one, just about dropped it. There we go. Okay, so I've got one of each of the standalone or individual dies that don't cut the images out. They're just intended to cut shapes. Okay, now we can take this off. I always save my Post-it note tapes if you're using it, or your Post-it notes, because they come in handy. And look how beautiful that really subtle image is. So now we can start putting our card together. So I'm going to have this go like that, and then we're going to take and use some of these Petunia Pop sprigs and leaves. If I can get that out, the middle's out. Alrighty, come on. There we go. If you find it hard to get these bits out, run it through a couple of times. This die is really good, but sometimes, especially if you're like me and you don't clean the cardstock out of your die, get a little lazy. Sometimes it won't cut as well as what it would if you clean out your dies. And so run it through 2 or 3 times if you're finding it a problem to get out. Okay, so I've got my flower for the front of my card. I pulled out, this is the very black and very vanilla ribbon. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I want to tie a bow. So I'm going to just take, hopefully I haven't chipped myself. I want to tie a bow over on this left-hand side. Okay, so I always, when I tie a bow, I turn my cardstock, whatever I'm wrapping my ribbon around, upside down. And that's because I can control which way my tails go. And so I'm going to make sure my tails go towards the bottom, just by kind of keeping them in the spot I want them. Otherwise, I get tails that go all sorts of different ways. So I'm just going to, I want quite a small bow because it's quite a large image. So I just want a little bow. There we go. Isn't that pretty? So even though I used white on my cardstock, or for my basic white for the cardstock, you can use very vanilla with it. It's like mixing metals. Mixing very vanilla and basic white together is perfectly fine. And then I'm going to use a glue dot just underneath where my bow is, like that, and we'll trim now. There we go. Pretty little bow. Okay, so now let's use some. I'm almost to the end of my dimensionals on this sheet, and I don't like them to go to waste, so I just take my paper snips and just cut around so that I can use up every little bit. For some reason the backing won't come off on this one easily. So I'll just take and use this. Once I have this little game I play with myself, maybe you do the same, that I have to use up all these little bits of dimensional before I let myself open up a new package. Silly game, but that way I use them up and don't make it go to waste, or don't let it go to waste. Okay, so now I'm going to just take and put this over that ribbon. Helps to hold it in place like that. And then I'm going to use glue dots to just tuck my leaves and sprigs. So just put them onto the glue dot, or onto a glue dot. And then you can tear that. Now you've got a little sheet, or a little strip that you can then use and just tuck. Oopsie, my glue dot came off. Come on. Tuck that. All right, come on. My glue dot's sticking to my finger, but won't come off the Take Your Pick tool. All right, so we're just going to tuck that underneath. Tuck that underneath. Get it into a spot so it's actually going to show. There we go, like that, and hopefully the glue dot won't show. There we go. And we've got two other ones here. Let's put this one. Well, these glue dots are just sticking to my fingers this morning. Let's put this one down here. I could have used green, but I just love I love Petunia Pop. It's one of my favorite new in colors, so that's why I decided I was going to use Petunia Pop for my sprigs. There we go. Okay, isn't that pretty? So the last thing we need for this is a sentiment. So I've got that for the inside of the card. All right, so where's my stamp? So I want the happy anniversary. So I was thinking white, but I think what I'm going to do is I've got a piece of this Petunia Pop. So I'm going to use happy anniversary because that's a nice celebration. Need a bigger block. There we go. All right, so this is a photopolymer, and sometimes photopolymer stamps can kind of twist a little bit. So I just kind of flop it down onto my either grid paper or a glass mat. Did you know the glass mats are coming back? And so starting in July, you customers will be able to get a glass mat that have only been available to demonstrators up until this point. So that's exciting. If you are a demonstrator, you can pre-order your glass mat, especially if you didn't get one in December when we were able to order them. You can pre-order your glass mat now, starting June 5th. So also if you aren't a demonstrator and you can't wait to get either some of the new online exclusives that came out on June 5th for demonstrators to pre-order, if you can't wait for that or your glass mat, it's a great time to join my team and add it to your starter kit. I love when new products come out from Stampin' Up. I just love poring over and deciding what I'm going to add to my wish list. I have a wish list. Just like you have wish lists, I have a wish list too. All right, so I've just fussy cut my sentiment out, and I'm going to use some dimensionals to pop that up. Don't want to cover too much of the flower. Might have to cover a little bit. All right, so I'm going to try and just kind of cover and not cover up too much of my pretty flower that I did. All right, now I need some embellishments. So these are the in color resin dots. So these are the new in color resin dots. So I'm going to use some Petunia Pop dots. They come in all of the new in colors. So we'll use one there. And then the last thing we need is something for the inside of the card. So there is this little tiny flower. And I'm going to stamp it in Petunia Pop on the inside of the card. Just down. My favorite is down on the bottom right-hand corner of a card base or a cardstock that I'm putting on the inside. You might have your favorite spot to put them, but for me, it's always bottom right. Not sure why, but probably because I think it's the first thing that you see when you open the card. In this case, it's anywhere on the bottom because it's a 10-fold. Okay, there we go. There is a celebration card for an anniversary using no line decorative masks. So if you had stamped this image first, you would of course seen that this lovely flower image as well with all of the coloring, but I think it makes a really nice and subtle card when you do the no line method. All right, there we go. I hope you enjoyed that card. Yeah, come back over here. I hope you enjoyed the card. If you have any questions as you're watching this, if you've never tried this technique, just leave a comment underneath this video and I'd be happy to answer your questions. But give it a try if you've never used any of the decorative layering masks that we have. We had some in the last mini catalog that got carried over called Enduring Beauty, and now we have these that are called Layers of Beauty. So try them out and see what you think. Maybe the stamping method is your favorite, but maybe this one's your favorite. And don't forget to check out all of the links. Check out everybody's video in this video hop. You can find all of them underneath this video in the description. Now, when I talked in the card, I forgot to say this. I talked in Imperial Measurements because that's what I'm used to. But when you go to the description of this video, you'll find all of the metric measurements for the card if that's what you use. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. Don't forget to check out the video hops, and we will see you next month. Happy stamping. Bye.